Dr. Stein, are you happy to share your slides, or would you like us to?
No, I'm happy to share mine.
Okay, cool.
Because of course I made a couple last minute changes.
Yeah, absolutely, that happens. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us on your, I think it is Friday evening at the moment in Canada, is it?
Okay. Can you see my slides?
We can. So
okay, excellent.
That's awesome, thank you. So I'll just give it a little bit of an introduction. So Dr. Stein is a psychiatrist in private practice in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and a clinical assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Calgary. She's participated in several research studies and is currently a steering committee member of the ICanCME research group. She plans to contribute to the development of accredited online CME modules for healthcare professionals with the goal of closing the service gap. For the past 20 years, she's worked exclusively with patients with myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and environmental sensitivities. So welcome, Dr. Stein. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure, listening to your meeting. I was kind of getting emotional listening to Patrick talk about the help that you're giving, like the very practical help. There's so many support groups that maybe advocate and educate, but don't actually directly step in to help people. So I just want to say well done. I'm sure that's meeting an enormous need. And it kind of leads me to preface what I'm going to say by saying what you talked about, people have to have safe housing, healthy food, and social support for the stuff I'm going to talk about to be most beneficial. So I am changing my role. So I'm retiring from medical practice at the end of December, and I'm also resigning my role as chair of one of the working groups of the ICanCME research team. And I'm going to be using my time focusing on what I can offer online. And my rationale for doing that is I've had ME for 33 years. I've had a long time to learn, what works and what doesn't. And I've devoted my private practice to these diseases, I'll say, for the last 22 years. And in Canada, as a medical doctor, I'm only allowed to work with people who live in my province. Healthcare is kind of divided up. So it means that I can't even reach people in other areas of Canada that maybe have no experienced clinicians. And so I'm thinking that by going online, I can reach people really anywhere in the world who maybe need access to experienced healthcare information. So let's see. So a little bit about how I got into this. Nobody signs up to be an ME/CFS clinician. We all get here through adversity. I became ill in 1989. I was a second-year psychiatry resident. And it just started with a mild flu. Like I didn't feel, some people say it was the worst flu they ever had. That wasn't my case. But over the next 2 months, it got worse to the point where I had to take time off of my training. I was very, very lucky that I had a supportive training director without whom I wouldn't be sitting here today because I wouldn't have been able to finish my training. He allowed me to basically work part-time and kind of do my requirements as I was able. And I was affected physically and cognitively every moment of every day. I'm very grateful I was never in the severely ill category like the people that Patrick was mentioning. In the past 33 years, I kind of did the math recently. I've probably spent $300,000 because I've probably spent even more than that, $10,000 to $20,000 a year trying everything. I've traveled around the world, going to medical conferences, meeting with so-called experts, doing tons of testing. Like if you can think of a functional medicine test, I've probably done it, probably more than once. And I've done many of the interventions that, you know, in their day were the hot, exciting intervention, supplement protocols, intravenous protocols, medication protocols, and nothing really had a significant lasting impact. And so because of that, for many years, I had the belief that these diseases, we were kind of stuck with them and there was really nothing we could do. I used to tell people, all of the self-management I'm doing is keeping me in the game, waiting for the day when there's going to be some kind of, you know, powerful targeted biomedical cure. But then unexpectedly in 2017, I got a lot better. And since then, so that's 5 years ago, that improvement has lasted and has been with me every day. So I'm able to do more. I'm able to think clearer. I'm able to work longer, which I'm trying to solve by retiring. I'm able to exercise pretty much every day. I don't do marathons, but like I do about an hour of exercise most days. I'm able to go out. My chemical sensitivity is dramatically better, so I'm able to go places without fearing the results of smells. And when I reflect, okay, what happened? I tried everything for so many years and nothing made a significant difference. And now I suddenly got better. And at the time I got better, and it again was pretty sudden, over about a month or so, I wasn't doing any fancy protocols. I wasn't doing any injections or new medications. What I was doing was what I call the basics. Diet, I think for many people is huge, not for everybody. For me, it's pretty big. And I'll talk about it a little bit later. I myself am on the paleo autoimmune diet. I definitely don't recommend it for everyone, but for me, it's made a very big difference. I had really mastered pacing. Like, I don't need to wear a heart rate monitor anymore. I did it for years. I now can tell, you know, if I'm reaching the edge of my energy envelope. I did cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia on myself, and it helped. It helped improve my sleep quality. I own a sauna. I use it frequently and have done for 20 years, and I continue to do so. I think very significant for me, I really worked on my mindset. So like I said, for 27 years, I had stayed in the game. I was able to work part-time. So I was in the, I would say, moderate illness category, but I felt like crap most days. But I did a neuroplasticity-based program. And what I realized is my thinking had gotten very negative. I had really given up hope that I would get better, that there was a possibility. And I really had worked on that very determinately with a bunch of other people that I met in the course that I went to, like daily practice. And I think the combination of all of those things is what made the difference for me. And so it's from so after my change, I started using different messaging with my patients. I started saying, you know what, there's a chance of recovery, and here's the things that might help you get there. And I've had many, many patients have significant improvements. And then coincidentally, just about the time that COVID hit, I was ready to, well, I guess it didn't hit in New Zealand, right? Because you were like closed off from the world. But here in Canada, it hit hard. And so everything went online. And I had just been ready to launch my online courses literally the month after COVID hit. And people in my courses are also reporting improvements. So what I now believe is different. Like if you had interviewed me 5 or 10 years ago, I would have given you a different message. that lifestyle optimization really can make a difference. In the past 5 years, I've done a ton of reading of the medical literature, and what I've found is what I call self-management, which is now often referred to as lifestyle optimization, for chronic complex diseases, which is the big umbrella category that we fit into, is the most effective intervention. Most of these diseases have no fancy targeted drugs. And so lifestyle optimization, not only is it better than nothing, but it actually works. Like, there's a ton of studies, many of which I summarize in my slowly being published new book, that it actually makes a difference. So I've changed my belief because of my own experience, because of watching my patients and my course participants, and because of what I've read in the science literature. And the beauty of lifestyle optimization is it's accessible. Even people who are socially disadvantaged and severely ill can implement baby steps to move towards their goals. It is effective, and most people improve. So you notice in my messaging, I'm using the word improve. I'm not using the word cure. I'm pretty sure that if I abandoned all of my kind of daily self-management tools, probably things wouldn't go so well for me. So I'm on a lifelong plan of all of the things that I'm going to talk to you about in the upcoming moments. I don't think I'm cured. I think I still have vulnerability. I still have all kind of the genetic and predisposing factors that probably led to me getting ME in the first place, like hypermobility and POTS and autonomic dysfunction, and probably MCAS and several other things. So those things are still there. My blood tests and, genetic tests are still abnormal. Nothing's changed, and yet I'm functioning better. So what I now believe is that I can teach people how to improve their health, and people with a pretty broad range of medical diagnoses, which include fatigue and pain as the primary symptoms. So what I'm going to do today is kind of share some of the tips that I think are the low-hanging fruit that people can pretty easily try and implement and see if it helps them. Now, unlike many programs out there, I'm not, what's the word? Like, I'm not advocating, 3 easy steps to miraculous cure. That's, in my opinion, that's not my experience, and that's not what I'm teaching others. What I teach, I call it a smorgasbord approach, because we're all different. We all have different genetics, we have different histories, we have different biology, we have different preferences, we have different social situations, different degrees of social support. So my strategy is to teach you a really wide range of potential interventions, and then guide you how to try to figure out which ones might be the right ones for you. And as it says on this slide, how do you figure that out? It's through careful self-observation. So for the last for the last 22 years, I've advocated careful self-observation in my manual, which is called Let Your Light Shine Through, which I published about 10 years ago. There's a whole bunch of paper charts in there that people can use to try to keep track of their symptoms and figure out what's making each symptom better and worse. Now, with the advent of apps and different wearable trackers to figure out what's going on without having to kind of pay so much attention, and apps where you can write down all of your symptoms, it's made life much, much easier. Once you've observed what's going on with you, you can form hypotheses. For example, you might say, you know what, my worst symptom is my post-exertional malaise. So if I put effort into pacing, that might help all of my other symptoms improve. Someone else might say, my biggest problem is poor sleep, and so I'm going to focus on that. Someone else might say, it's my emotions, they're all over the place and they keep dragging me down, and they might want to make that their priority. So by carefully observing yourself, hopefully you can make an educated guess, we call that in medicine a hypothesis, about what might help you. Then you can make a plan from the smorgasbord of information available to you. You can put that plan into action, one thing at a time. So many people get all excited and they try 5 things at once. They crash because it's too much, and then they don't know what made them crash or what led to success. So baby steps. Then you evaluate, did this plan work or not work? If it worked, keep going. If it didn't work, write it down so you don't have to go through that step again. Because a lot of times, I've been sick for 33 years, you kind of forget what you did at the beginning. So maybe my first tip is keep really good notes. So I have binders. I don't even know what made me think of this, but when I very first became ill, I started writing down everything I was trying, who I met, what things were prescribed to me, what supplements I was taking. So I have very detailed notes in 2 or 3 binders, so I can quickly remember if I've already tried something before, and then either continue or stop and change course. So when people use this approach, I've got hope in big letters in the middle, they experience validation. So I think working with me, because I get it, I've been there, people instinctively right away know I'm not questioning their experience. People feel empowered because lifestyle modification is something that you're totally in charge of. You can do it or not do it. Unlike a drug where you're kind of handing control over to some other substance or person. I think I've done groups in my medical practice from day one. So even in medical school, I was so curious about the power of group, and I did a lot of training in groups. I've done them in my medical practice from day one. People really benefit from feeling not alone. Like there's other people going through what I'm going through. That means I'm not crazy. I'm not lazy. It's not my fault. All of those negative messages that we sometimes say to ourselves. And then most people get a bigger life. They start being able to do more of the things that they enjoy. So I'm very quickly going to run through what I think are the big 8 topics for people that have ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, environmental sensitivities, and now long COVID. And I'm going to give you some very practical tips from each of these 8 categories. So the first thing I go over, this is new information that is not in my manual because it's the learning that I've done in the last 5 years since I recovered, and I've been trying to figure out why, what happened. So I call it the biology of change, meaning how can I, by changing my daily behavior, influence my biology without medications, infusions, and treatments, like things like, and I'm not knocking any of these treatments, but treatments that require or depend upon other people, things that I can do myself. So the 3 areas I focus on are neuroplasticity. How can I change the wiring in my brain? How can I change epigenetics, which is which genes are turned on or turned off in any given moment? Believe it or not, we have a lot of influence on that. And how can I change the microbiome, the bugs that are growing in and on me, especially in my large bowel? So our brain is constantly making new connections and breaking down or recycling old ones, constantly from before birth to the moment of death. It happens without our awareness, whether we like it or not. It can cause problems, as you're going to find when I talk about pain. Chronic pain is caused by neuroplasticity, so things going awry like a runaway train. But if we take charge of neuroplasticity and we understand how it works, we can rewire our brain for our benefit. How does this work? Every thought, emotion, and action is hardwired. There's the first law of neuroplasticity. What fires together, wires together. That means every time I fire a whole circuit of neurons in my brain, I'm strengthening certain neural circuits and I'm not strengthening others. So the things that I do more often strengthen those pathways. If I do pain often, through no fault of my own, maybe I have pain and I focus on it and it starts taking over my life, then unfortunately those pathways get strengthened. However, if I make a decision to focus my attention away from those things that I don't like, those pathways weaken. Oh gosh, let me just, I have a little tip here, which is not showing up. So just give me one moment. There we go. So my tip for neuroplasticity, another little aspect of neuroplasticity that I find amazing. Say I want to practice walking, because I used to love walking and now I can't do it anymore. But it's not so easy. I can't just decide to start walking, right? That's not going to happen. But if I imagine walking, I picture myself walking, it activates 80% of the neurons that are activated if I actually walk, believe it or not. So I call that changing your brain without lifting a finger. So a simple strategy to try is to begin imagining yourself in good health as if it were already true. And you might go, ugh, that sounds kind of woo-woo, but bear with me. If you imagine yourself in good health, you're activating all the neurons and neural pathways that you need to support good health. Imagining yourself in good health doesn't mean kind of imagining the body per se, but rather focus on the activities and what your life would be like if your health were to be improved. What would you be doing? Who would you be doing it with? Where would you be? What thoughts and emotions would you have? All the senses, what would be the sights and the smells? That's the type of thing I was practicing every single day for about 3 years before I got better. I'm a slow learner. Some of the people I was practicing with had improvements much sooner. Next in biology of change is how to turn on those genes that make your body function better, and specifically anti-inflammatory genes. The Mediterranean diet, it turns out, acts in large part through epigenetics. So diet is a very powerful modulator of which genes are turned on and which are turned off. In my book chapter, The Biology of Change, I talk about some of the research experiments that are just kind of mind-blowing. So if they put rats that are genetically bred to be obese and have white fur on the rat equivalent of the Mediterranean diet, their health improves and their fur turns brown, right? Isn't that amazing? So things that we think are hardwired and cannot be changed can be changed by diet. And exercise is a very big influencer of epigenetics. And I'm aware in saying that not everyone is able to exercise. But just to say, exercise increases the nerve growth factors that improves brain health and protects against dementia. So finding some ability to have movement that's within your energy envelope is helpful. And lastly, how do you improve your microbiome? The bugs that live in our bowel produce molecules that then are absorbed into our blood and travel around the entire body and have profound impact on both our physical and mental health. And the take-home message is, if our bugs are happy, we're happy. Literally, right? There's a lot of studies in psychiatry that the microbiome influences mood. So the take-home message here to try is to diversify your diet, eat as many different foods as possible every day and every week, have all of the rainbow included in your diet, have it be mostly plant-based, real food as much as possible, and with natural high fiber, as opposed to fiber supplements. Next, I'm going to talk about diagnosis. So obviously, if you're not really sure what you have, it's going to make it very hard for you to figure out what steps to take. So I'm just going to quickly review. Many of you, I'm sure, are very aware of this information. So for ME/CFS, the core symptom is post-exertional malaise. This refers to a worsening of many symptoms, usually 5 to 8, after very mild exertion that previously wouldn't have been a problem at all. The worsening lasts for more than 24 hours, and it's often delayed onset. For fibromyalgia, the core symptom is what we now call chronic widespread pain. The pain is described as moving, so it moves in location. Unlike an acute injury, it doesn't stay in one spot. And it's described as aching, tiring, worse with repeated activity, and better with heat. Environmental sensitivity, the definition is that you have heightened sensitivity to small, sometimes even infinitesimal exposures to toxins that other people don't even notice. And often people with environmental sensitivities and all of these category of illnesses have something that is being called sensory hypersensitivity, meaning we're not only sensitive to smell, but also to sound and to light and to stimulation in general. And probably this is a sign that the brain is generally, the volume is turned up. It's more sensitive than would be ideal. And lastly, long COVID. About 50% of people with long COVID have symptoms that are indistinguishable from ME/CFS. However, they have some additional symptoms, such as the loss of smell or taste and chronic cough and shortness of breath. Next, we move to sleep. Using a sleep diary, or I would say now a wearable tracker, is definitely the way to go, is invaluable. I have an Oura Ring. I don't work for the company and I don't get any kickbacks, but just to say it's a very accurate tracker, which has given me just, I got mine about 1.5 years ago, and it gave me new information that all of the tracking I've done over many decades had never previously told me. And that information led me to change some things I was doing with my sleep to improve it. Some tips that anyone can implement pretty easily right away: get outside first thing in the morning. Ideally, wake up at the same time and get outside within 1 hour of sunrise. Now, everybody asks, because everybody's fatigued, can I just sit in front of my window? Sadly, the answer is no, because apparently, according to the experts, the amount of sunlight that you get inside is 50 times less than the photons that are getting to your eyes outside, even on a cloudy day. And I live in Canada, Northern Hemisphere. We don't have very bright sun. It's December right now. Nevertheless, I'm told that even for us in this low sun situation, getting outside every morning, you don't have to be exercising. You could wrap yourself in a blanket and sit outside, but getting that direct sunlight is really helpful. You want to decrease the amount of time you spend in bed awake, because at an unconscious level, that conditions the brain that bed is a place you go to not sleep. And many, many people I work with have severe disrupted sleep because maybe they have pain and that's interfered with their sleep. and they've been resting during the day and napping, and everything adds up to kind of a bad sleep situation at night. And so the way to fix that is to only stay in bed when you're very sleepy and likely to fall asleep quite quickly. And the third, I think, most important sleep tip is to start a daily practice to learn how to calm your nervous system. This involves things like paced breathing, slowing the out breath. That activates the vagus nerve. That helps balance the fight or flight and the rest and digest systems. And when the vagus nerve is more active, sleep is going to come more easily. Now, pacing is not the most popular self-management strategy, but over the years, people repeatedly tell me it's the single most effective strategy that has worked for them. And when people get it, when they learn how to pace well, their quality of life starts improving. The first thing people notice is that they keep having the big ups and downs, the crash burn cycle. That allows them a better quality of life because they can predict better how much energy they're going to have and what things they can commit to. And then second, after you've been steady, avoiding post-exertional malaise crashes for about 6 months, you're going to start noticing your baseline energy increase. So there's a tape delay there. Stay the course. 3 pacing strategies that people find helpful. One is called chunking. That means break the tasks that you're doing up into small enough chunks that you don't even trigger the early warning signs of a crash. As soon as you trigger the early warning signs, it means you've just about used up all of your energy. It's great that you notice the early warning signs and you stop and rest, but it would be better if you stopped before you got to that stage. Next is switching. That means spend a little bit of time maybe doing a cognitive task and then take a break, and then spend a bit of time doing a physical task or a social get-together, like a phone call. That allows some of the body systems to rest while you're doing something else and accomplishing things. And of course, the third big tip for pacing is resting. There's different kinds of resting. There's preemptive resting before an event that you know is going to take a lot of energy. There's recovery resting to recover after the event that took a lot of energy. And there's an amazing book that I recommend to you all called Classic Pacing by a severely ill Norwegian ME patient, Ingeborg Midsom Dahl, D-A-H-L. And in there, she has another type of rest, which is rest to kind of, even when you're not tired, to build up your energy reserves. Moving to diet. This is a tough one. So most people don't have much of an idea what diet is going to be best for them. And the research suggests that this is because they're correct. Everybody's different and there is no one single best diet. So my recommendation is to try something called a rotation diet. 4-day rotation diet, you divide all of the foods that you eat or that are accessible to you into 4 groups. You eat some of them on day 1, others on day 2, others on day 3, others on day 4. And then you keep track of which day in that rotation you feel better and or which day you feel worse. That's going to give you a hint about which foods you tolerate better or your body tolerates better. For anybody who has, we'll say, overeating issues or blood sugar issues, the use of or overweight issues, the use of a continuous tissue glucose monitor is invaluable. It's crazy the amount of information you get quickly. So you put it in usually the back of your upper arm for 2 weeks. That way, every single time you eat, you can scan the device and it tells you what your blood sugar is. So you can figure out for your individual biology what foods have a nice slow rise in blood sugar after you eat them and which ones spike your blood sugar. There's no way to predict that other than to measure it. For most people, decreasing carbohydrate intake is going to be a good suggestion because most of us eat more carbohydrate than we need, especially in the category of starches. But that's not true for everyone. I have a bunch of patients just in the last few years since the keto diet has become very trendy who have had really dramatic improvements in both energy and brain fog on a keto, or as they call it, a keto-ish diet. And as I said, for myself, the paleo autoimmune, I think is unfortunately, my rest of my life diet, because every time I cheat, the results are not that fun. But that's a very limited diet, and I definitely wouldn't recommend it unless you have an autoimmune diagnosis. So there's research, we talked about MS earlier. There's research that people with MS, for example, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and I believe inflammatory bowel disease, all autoimmune conditions, do much, much better on a paleo autoimmune diet. So a quick word about pain. I want to give you the message, and this is a bold statement, that chronic pain is reversible. Some of you may have heard of Lorimer Moseley and David Butler. They're from the NOI group in Australia. I highly recommend their YouTube videos. They're hilarious educators. And they go even farther and they say chronic pain is 100% reversible. Why could we make that statement? It's because, like I said before, pain is caused by neuroplasticity in the brain gone awry. And anything that neuroplasticity causes, neuroplasticity can reverse. So how do you actually do that? The strategy I find the most helpful is called active redirection. So what this means is you become aware of pain. Now, some people have pain 24/7, but it's when it impinges upon your awareness. You might have numbed out or distracted yourself for a while, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, right, I'm someone with severe chronic pain. So as soon as you become aware of it, you have a choice. You can focus on the pain, and sometimes it's hard not to, so this isn't a statement of judgment and how horrible it is and how it's ruining your life. Or you can make a decision to shift the focus of your attention to something that's going to make you feel better. So it could be a visualization, a memory of something good that happened in the past. It could be phoning a friend who you really enjoy, someone who makes you laugh. It could be gentle touch, wrapping yourself up in a warm blankie. It could be listening to great music that really moves you. It could be doing something creative that makes you feel productive. So there's literally hundreds or thousands of options of what you can redirect your focus to. Each time you redirect the focus of your attention, you're training your brain that this pain is not dangerous, which is accurate because the pain is created by the brain. It is not a sign of tissue damage. Now, I know some of you aren't going to believe me, and I don't have time to go into it in extensive detail, but for people who want to learn more, probably in about 3 weeks, I'm launching a course that will teach you how to do this in depth. The last tip for pain is to increase your sense of safety. So there's very extensive research that when people feel safe, the brain processing centers turn down the volume and pain perception goes down. So everything you do in a day, where you go, who you talk to, what you think, what you say, your mindset has a huge impact on how severely you sense your pain. We're almost at the end. I've just got 2 left. So this one is toxic exposures. Yeah, this is just a big sigh because, you know, we live in a polluted world. I think you in New Zealand have it a little bit better than we do in, say, Europe or North America. You're a little bit isolated and probably the air is a little bit cleaner, but there are so many man-made pollutants everywhere in our air and our water. We're all exposed. So my advice to anyone, irrespective of your health status, is to try to minimize exposure where possible. In my house, I have a whole house water filter and a whole house air filter to try to minimize my exposure. Diet comes up again because if we eat this colorful, diverse, plant-based, real food, organic diet, our liver is better able to get rid of the toxins that we are exposed to. And lastly, detox through sweating is an awesome tool. So I saw Kate pop up, so I'm sure my time is almost up. I'm on my last point. So the last one is emotions and mindset. Having strong emotions, grief and fear is absolutely normal. So no problem there. What I talk about in my manual and my course is there's normal phases of adjustment that people go through. And understanding those phases will help normalize the process so that you won't panic or think that you're somehow not coping well. The last phase is integration, and this refers to combining the best of who you were before you became ill with all of the wisdom you've gained through your journey. And maintaining a mindset that's consistent with the future you want to create, i.e., optimistic and hopeful, rather than the present or the past that you're wanting to get away from is really important. So the bottom line is it is possible to improve. There are tried and tested science-based strategies. There is hope. And here are some links to some of the resources I have to offer. That's it. I have no idea how long I went for. I hope it wasn't too long. And I don't know if there's time for questions. I hope there is.
You're on mute, Kate.
Yes, there's absolutely time for questions, Dr. Stein. And there wasn't a time that just popped up because you said you were nearing the end. So
yeah, okay.
It's all good. I really appreciate your talk, and I know everyone else will have found it fascinating as well. I resonate with how you said that you how you got into this through, you know, having ME yourself, and I think there's so many of us in that situation. I myself have ME, and that's how I got into working with ME Auckland. And it's because of, I think, of the lack of, you know, other supports that are out there, and you know, their passion to help other people and make a difference. Yeah. Really resonated with your conversations about diet and that changing epigenetic, having an influence on epigenetics. And I love that you talk about sauna, because I've actually started doing sauna in the last year or so, and I think it personally makes a massive difference to myself as well. So really appreciate it. Love the way of evaluating your illness, looking at a hypothesis and then taking a step and then reevaluating and then, you know, seeing where you're at and then and going through it again. And it really does confirm that we have to be managers of our own illness.
That's a key message.
Yeah, we have to take it on ourselves and do this ourselves, because actually nobody else is going to for us, unfortunately. So,
but even if I can just comment on that, because we often, I've done this myself, we kind of think, oh, if I only had some other illness in which there was, you know, a huge amount of medical knowledge and presence. But you know what? Even those people who have arthritis, heart disease, things like that, you still have to take it on yourself.
It's true. It is true. Absolutely. Especially because lifestyle factors do make a massive difference. So we've probably got some questions in the chat here. Jenny asks, with connective tissue failure, would not the muscular system have to take an increased load of holding the body together? increasing muscular load and strain, and therefore causing significant pain. I know that when skin was pulling off a family member's body pain, neck instability was all far worse. Now, after a great diet, it's more stability and less pain.
Yeah, so many of us, especially with ME, have what we'll say connective tissue disorders, to kind of put it broadly, and that means that our connective tissue is weaker than the average person. I know I fall into that category, so you might suspect you have that if you're very flexible, if you have very soft skin. I interviewed a patient just this week and I just kept touching her skin because it was so soft. If you scar a lot, like you cut yourself and the scarring is quite severe, and if you're constantly injuring yourself, these would all be signs that you might have a connective tissue condition. And that's really interesting, Jenny, about the diet. So I really wasn't aware that diet would help, but that's great that you found something. Oh, and people with this problem often have orthostatic problems, right? They often have low blood pressure and POTS. So this person I interviewed, I did the Nassau lean test and she fell over after 6 minutes. So we had to discontinue the test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Philippa also asks, how long do we have to stay outside for if we go outside first thing in the morning to get some sunlight? What's a good time frame?
10 minutes, that's it. And you guys live in a beautiful sunny country, so it should be really, really easy for you. It's a hard sell here when it's -20 out. People are like, are you kidding me? Are you crazy?
Yeah, we're very lucky here.
Yeah.
Donna's asked, where can we get a continuous tissue glucose monitor from?
So I don't know in New Zealand. The Abbott, I always get the name, it has Libre in the name. So in Canada now there's 3 different companies that are making continuous glucose monitors. If you go online, you should easily be able to find it. Many insurance companies in Canada are now covering the cost because they're noticing, it's going to save them money in the long run because it helps people manage their metabolic issues. But like Donna said, it's good for anyone with high or low glucose because the low glucose usually comes after a bit of a peak. So by figuring out which foods don't cause that peak and crash, it's just like pacing, right? You want to get out of the push crash cycle. In Canada, they cost about $300 to get started. Then once you have the scanner, each replacement, the little needle that stays in your arm, the actual monitor costs about $100 and it lasts for 2 weeks.
Okay. So it's something you don't need your doctor to get you. You can just purchase.
Yeah, but I think if it's covered by insurance, then you want to go through your doctor because then you might not have to pay for it. So it's worth talking to your doctor about, I would say, because it might benefit you. And I think any doctor in the world will have heard of this. Like it's all over.
Awesome, thank you. Leanne's asked us if there's a facilitated group or sessions that someone can join in regards to the pain approach that you were talking about.
Oh, the pain approach, yes. So I offer 2 different courses. The Pathways course that I kind of summarized for you today is ongoing. It's a self-study. And we're just like literally this coming week, we're going to launch something called the mentor-led study group, which is exactly that facilitated group session. That's going to be kind of like a book study, 10 sessions over 20 weeks, where you'll go through the material in depth and kind of have a chance to review it and, everybody brainstorm different tips for each of the different symptom areas. My pain course is called Healing Through Neuroplasticity. The pilot has been open for almost 2 months. And so we've made a bunch of tweaks to it and we're going to be opening, I'm hoping before Christmas, the self-study. And then in the new year, once people are familiar with the material, then we'll launch the facilitated group for that one.
Okay, fantastic. And I take it this information's on your website. People can go on there.
Yes, if you go to my website, right on the front page, there's links to both of the courses with quite extensive detail.
Awesome, thank you. And Rupert's asked, what diet is best to reduce brain fog?
Yeah, so the one I mentioned was the ketogenic diet. So for those who aren't familiar, ketogenic means that you lower your carbohydrate intake enough that you force the body to try to get its energy from breaking down fat. So it's a good weight loss diet, but for reasons I don't fully understand, it's actually been used for over 100 years in people with epilepsy. So it's known to be really good for the brain for a long time. And it's really just having a bit of a renaissance, I would say, in the last 5 years or so. So basically, a pure keto is pretty tough. It means you eat 70% of your calories from fat and about 20% of your calories from protein, and 15 to 20 and 10 to 15 from carbohydrate. So it's basically you're eating vegetables and meat. That's it. That's pretty much what I eat. So I can tell you it's very doable.
I actually listened to a talk last week. I went to a conference and there was a neurologist talking about the keto diet, which he uses for patients with certain things. And he was saying that it's the ketones that are produced that actually are a superior type of fuel for the brain instead of using glucose, which is why it's helpful for brain kind of disorders and challenges.
It's pretty striking when it works. Like I had a patient who I literally thought was getting dementia at age 50. She couldn't think or talk or communicate. It was painful. She went on keto and she came to group and gave us like a 30-minute presentation on keto with handouts. I mean, it was unbelievable how much her thinking had improved. I just saw somebody said, no, not the pain approach, the overall Stein approach. So that course is called Pathways to Improvement. That's my overall, like all the stuff I presented today is kind of tips from that course. And it's on my landing page.
I'd also heard with the keto diet that if people can't go like full keto because it's quite challenging, that adding a couple of tablespoons of coconut oil to their diet can actually help the body to create that ketosis, the approach that the brain uses for ketones. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, it's called MCT, medium chain triglycerides. I'm just thinking of the very famous brand of coconut oil. I'm just blanking on it. Yeah, it's helpful because if you're hungry, it's better to reach for that. Not so yummy, but better to reach for that than a carbohydrate snack because that's going to put you out of keto and then you got to start all over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you add the MCT oil to things?
Yeah, anything.
Salad dressing.
Yeah, coconut oil is really easy to cook with and has a high smoke point, and yeah.
Fantastic. That's great. Is there any other questions from anybody? Would anybody like to ask anything directly? We've got one popped up. Yeah, Michelle.
Somebody earlier just wanted to check, was it your Aura ring that you used for sleep tracking? We just wanted to confirm that. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I feel kind of like I'm not like supporting the company, but I like it because it's snug to your finger. So just to say a little bit, maybe a quick thing about trackers, the best tracker for you depends on what information you need. So if you're someone who has dysautonomia, which is being talked about in the chat, meaning your blood pressure is very, changes a lot, and you really want to keep track of your blood pressure in real time, then the Aura ring isn't a good choice because you can't see your heart rate in real time. It's late for me. It's 7 o'clock in the evening. So if you want to keep track of your heart rate in real time to help you with pacing, to stay within your energy envelope and not push it too high, you want a watch tracker, like a Fitbit, a Garmin, a Polar, an Apple Watch. But if you don't care about that because you've already done it for 30 years and you pretty much know your heart rate, then the Oura Ring is great because it's more accurate because it's snug to your finger. The watch can move away from your wrist. I've had so many people email me in a panic saying, oh my gosh, my heart rate's like 240, but it isn't. It's just that it momentarily lost contact with their wrist and it makes scary readings. The Oura Ring doesn't do that. The Oura Ring is good. So it has the most functions. It gives you movement, heart rate variability, sleep, temperature, and even oxygen saturation. It's also pricey. It's $300 US. So I know in New Zealand dollars, that's going to be like a significant investment. And it's OURA for anybody who's wanting to look it up. And yes, it will pick up sleep apnea because it has oxygen saturation. It's had that since about August. It's a feature of the newest rings, and it's great because I didn't know, like some people have told me, Ellie, you're snoring, you should get checked out, but the ring is telling me I'm good. So again, really valuable information that can save you a lot of heartache or tests, going for more tests.
Absolutely, thank you.
Good.
I've actually got a tracking watch, and my tracking watch alarm's been going off, and my oxygen stats have been dropping below 90. And I talked to my doctor the other week about it, and he wants to get a sleep study now because it could be sleep apnea. And I would never have known if I hadn't been tracking that.
Exactly, they're super helpful. Like I would say any of us, right? You wouldn't be on this call if you didn't have some health problems or you're a caregiver of someone with health problems. You just get so much good, accurate information. It's so much better than trying to guess, gosh, was I asleep? Was I snoring? Like, how do you know?
Absolutely. Right. Any last questions for Dr. Stein? A minute, in case. Well.
If anyone has a follow-up question, you're welcome to email me. And thanks so much for your attention and the opportunity. And just to get exposed to your group, like it's very inspiring. I just have to tell you that here in Canada, we struggle. We don't have very many groups that are giving the kind of direct support that your group is giving. So it's very impressive. You should give yourself a big pat on the back.
Dr. Stein, the links that you had in your last slide, would you mind just popping them in the chat so people could copy them now before we close?
Okay, just give me 1 sec.
If that's easy. I mean, I know we can post it afterwards, but
okay, give me a sec because
yep.
I'm gonna have to get to that slide. Basically, from my landing page, you can get to anything, but just to make it easy.
I did post your website landing page. Yeah.
So basically, pathways.
Thank you.
The first one, that's my kind of overarching foundation course. And I actually recommend that people take that one first before they take the neuroplasticity course. Because experience, I've had people come into in my medical practice, right? I've been running these groups for years and years. I've had people come into the neuroplasticity course, but they don't have that solid foundation of self-care and they don't do as well. So I think that was a great question that person asked. The webinars, I have some webinars that are helpful, like how to activate your vagus nerve. I have one called Deep Pacing. I have one on neuroplasticity and pain. I have one with Neil Nathan, who's talking about what's going on behind the scenes, like mold exposure and Lyme disease, things like that. And then my books, there I have my manual, Let Your Light Shine Through, which is kind of all of the core material that I elaborated on in my course. And my new book which is only half written, but some of the chapters are available, called More Light. So that's in that link.
Awesome, that's wonderful. There is one other question there. Someone has asked, are there changes you consider when aging?
Sorry, say that again?
Are there changes that you consider when aging?
Oh gosh, like specific. Okay, I'm aging, right? I'm 59, so topic near and dear to my heart. I've been surprised. So Leonard Jason, some of you are aware, researcher extraordinaire from DePaul University in Chicago. He's done studies showing the top 3 causes of death are heart disease, cancer, and suicide. This is in people with ME. So that's quite sobering. There's been some speculation that people with ME and FM maybe die a little bit younger than maybe if we didn't have it. I am not convinced. I've been in practice for 22 years. I have an aging patient population. I don't see them dying young, except by suicide. I've lost many patients to suicide. So just maybe say, you know, if you're feeling hopeless, please get help, because there is hope. But if you're mired in depression, you're not going to be able to see or believe that there's hope, right? So you need to get the help first so that you can kind of believe it. I'm not seeing a lot of my patients really deteriorate with age. I think we do okay. Maybe it's because all my patients look after themselves. You know, they're not out drinking and partying and eating junk food. They're resting and pacing. They're all model patients.
Awesome. Oh, well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Stein. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today and answering everyone's questions. And we'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your Friday evening.
Thank you.
And we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch sometime soon. So
sounds good. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Kate, did you want to declare it closed meeting?
Yes, we can declare the meeting closed at 3:15.
Thank you so much, everybody, for making it today. I hope you found it useful.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm just going to be on here for a little bit while I copy chat and do some admin bits and pieces.
Sure thing. Okay, I'll see you later, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a very good speaker.
Yeah.